is Lauren Boone-Hollows, and I'm here for NOI Education Services. And today I am lucky enough to be talking to Todd Phillips. He is the director at Fire Wattle, a leading voice in reconciliation and cultural engagement. Todd is an experienced educator and strategist with over a decade working alongside Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. He holds a PhD in education focused on improving tertiary access for Indigenous youth, as well as an MBA in qualifications in youth work, Aboriginal studies, and management. Across roles in government, education, and the corporate sector, Todd has worked to embed First Nations knowledge in everything from sustainability to innovation. He's also a director at Deadly Coders, helping to equip young Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians with digital and STEMs knowledge for the future. Todd, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Pleasure to be here and to be able to chat with you about this meaningful work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess first and foremost, tell us what is Fire Wattle, and obviously you're with Deadly Coders as well. So, tell us a little bit about what all of this stuff is that you guys have been doing, because you've been very busy for the last couple of months.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, Fire Wattle is an Indigenous-owned business, and it's based around a simple idea that cultural knowledge and technological literacy should go hand in hand. So we work with organizations, corporate schools, universities, just to build basically cultural confidence and also deliver cybersecurity awareness training. Two areas that you might kind of think are worlds apart, but actually complement each other in a lot of powerful ways. Deadly Coders is a charity. We're an education charity. We started a couple of years ago. We're a not-for-profit. And we're really proud of the incredible work that we're doing, but it's really essentially about giving Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander young people skills and confidence to thrive within STEM. So that's kind of our focus. We run coding camps, digital design workshops, robotics, coding pathways and programs, and just really giving young people exposure and a pathway into the tech career. So that's essentially a little bit about both organizations. But I guess the thing that kind of separates us apart is that we've made a really strong commitment to donate 10% of our profits from Fire and Wattle work that goes straight back into the Deadly Coders charity and education pathways. So that's a little bit about us.
Awesome. Yeah. And you wouldn't naturally connect cybersecurity and cultural competency. So I know that like Deadly Coders has been running for, 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
How did then Fire and Wattle kind of evolve out of that?
Yeah, because we're a charity, we'd be working with a lot of corporates, and that was the sort of constantly getting requests to come and, hey, can you work with us to develop a reconciliation action plan or an engagement strategy, or I guess a natural progression around that career pathways, and we have limitations of what we can do as a charity. So we thought, why don't we set up a separate company that's a for-profit business that can really work in depth with corporates to go that next step and work with corporates to develop some really meaningful programs and career pathways. So that's how it sort of came about. And again, as I mentioned, we've got a really strong commitment. We want to boost Deadly Coders up. So Fire and Wattle donates percentage of our profits back into keep lots of programs going nationally.
So I noticed that you mentioned like the word like culturally confident, working with businesses to be culturally confident or culturally confident. What does cultural confidence look like to you in an Australian workplace?
Yeah, and I guess this the word cultural confidence, cultural capability, cultural safety, they're all interchangeable and used quite widely, but I guess essentially in an Australian context, cultural confidence is about going beyond awareness and making people feel that they can have meaningful conversations about culture, about identity, about history without that sort of fear or hesitation. It's about listening better, asking the right questions. And I guess all of us taking a bit of responsibility, not just to leave it up to the HR team or the Reconciliation Action Plan team or committee, but really to drive, organizational change and to drive the conversation and to build confidence within the organization that we can all play a role in this space.
So I guess there's obviously over the years, we've seen lots of different programs, the diversity, equity, inclusion space and everything like that. What is the approach of Fire and Wattle, or what makes Fire and Wattle a little bit different from, other programs that are available out there?
Yeah, well, great question. And I guess the thing that we're doing is that we want to, what separates us, makes us a little bit different, is that we center Indigenous voices from the beginning. We've really seen this as not just a HR exercise or a check the box exercise, but really about taking real knowledge systems, real stories, real impact, and really challenging organizations to reflect and to go deeper. Some of our training, we don't just talk about elders, but we interview elders to hear their real world perspectives and to give, our online training, our viewers a real world example and to engage better. So we work with a range of different elders. Uncle Bo Rambaldini, a really well respected Bunjalung elder from around my community. We sit down with him and have chats with him, and he talks about some of the real life lessons and about how we're going to work effectively together. Not focusing on the divide or the difference, but around that real positive working together relationships, and ultimately just coming back to providing opportunities for all communities. But challenging the organization, we want to do things a little bit differently. We want things to be meaningful. We want to, spark the courageous conversations, which sometimes we don't, we hesitate to have, but we want to do things effectively at the end of the day.
So I'm interested in that because I know we at NOI, we've worked with a range of different programs, and we've developed programs for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities before. And I know one of the challenges that we have when we're building things, we're very fortunate we can work with like a community and, understand what works for them and what the rules are and how things are going to work to engage. When you're building these sorts of programs, you're obviously building programs that you like nationally, and so you've got a lot of different groups and a lot of different stories that you incorporate into that. How have you approached that, and how do you manage that?
Yeah, and that can be a real tricky because not all communities are the same, and not all nation groups and language groups are the same. So I think one of the things we've done with our online training is to, I guess, keep it very kind of high level and generic, to talk about some of the sort of key themes around, working respectfully together with Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities, and some of the key dates that are significant nationally. But I guess the other approach is when we sort of build that relationships with corporates individually, we look at what does success look like, and what is an engagement plan look like for your organization. So an example is we work with a few tech companies, and they've got a footprint, in some really remote communities. So we can't have a sort of generic approach to that. We've got to look at, well, how can we work with this individual communities, and what are the needs, and speaking with community about what success looks like for them and what success looks like for the organization, and try and bridge and marry up that alignment. So well, I guess we ask the questions, sometimes the difficult questions, but we're looking at success from different angles. So that's kind of our aim.
Yeah, I mean, because when we look at Australia, for example, and I think that this is where you guys having that sort of cyber and tech focus is really interesting. We've still got so many parts of Australia whereby, I'm in far north Queensland. Literally, the only way that I get any sort of technology into my house is I have a Starlink, and there's so many places in Australia where, like, literally, if you don't have a Starlink, you're not going to be able to be connected. So the level of, I guess, technology understanding, technology availability, and technology integration across Australia is quite massive. And so when we look at like how technology and digital delivery are used in your programs, and how does that sort of work? And also, I guess, like when it comes to sort of the deadly coders and everything like that as well, that would be one of the areas whereby that is something that will eventually hopefully make quite a big long-term impact, because in some of the communities that you go to around Australia, like there's no technology whatsoever.
Yeah. And I mean, the work we do with deadly coders, like we take some of our really seasoned instructors out to these communities, and for a lot of these communities, it's the first time they've had access or exposure to coding or robotics. So sometimes we've got to get creative when we're working in different regions around Australia. And one of the things I'm really passionate about is, particularly in Indigenous communities, is giving our communities exposure to role models in different industries. We know we're great athletes and sports stars, and I'm really passionate about highlighting and raising up our role models in the tech space, and and our lawyers and doctors and nurses and teachers, and really amplifying that these career paths are really meaningful as well.
Yeah, I mean, particularly in the tech space, there's a real future-proofing element for communities, for anyone that is looking to kind of sort of get involved in sort of that STEM cyber sort of space. So yeah, I think that's great. You mentioned, so like I know that, obviously you guys have been doing Deadly Coders for a while. Fire and Wattle is an online platform. I was looking at the website the other day and you were talking to, there's options for like self-paced learning and gamified content. So how have like your learners started to respond to all of this sort of stuff? How have the learners in the organizations responded to the way that you guys have presented this?
Yeah, and look, we've had a lot of success really early. And honestly, our response has been really positive. So, people like having the freedom to learn at their own pace. I think people working in different industries and workplaces and corporates are familiar with the standard learning where it's it can be a little bit dull, but we've built our learning around quizzes and challenges, and we're continuously uploading different resources and reflective prompts that can keep people engaged. And we've also found that gamification helps break down barriers. It makes the content less intimidating. You can listen along to elders like Uncle Bo and our presenter Shanoa, and sort of really hear real life world experiences, and especially if, I think that really helps for people that are nervous or want to, don't want to say the wrong thing, or just feel a little bit ill-equipped to not knowing enough. So we've taken it in a different approach. We want people to feel really confident and to come out of our training and our learnings just, I guess, culturally more confident, and be able to not hesitate to ask the questions that are maybe a little bit taboo, or to, I guess, have them courageous conversations around how we can work together more effectively.
So you've mentioned the courageous conversations a couple of times. So give me an example of like what that question, like what does that courageous conversation look like? What, how do you start it? Like if I'm one of your, one of the employers that you're one of the organizations you guys are working with, show me what that looks like.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we work with a number of different corporates, and I think if you think about it in a reconciliation action plan context, we've got, almost 3,000 RAPs across the country that are driving reconciliation in three areas. It's around delivering respect. It's about building relationships with, you know, with communities in your footprint, and the one that I get really excited about, it's about where are the opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities in employment and training, or even procurement opportunities. But I've just found that, having worked with a number of different organizations, that it kind of, these areas sit with the RAP working committee, or they sit with HR, and you've got lots of people interested or want to make a difference in this space, but they just feel like, oh, this is not my area. I maybe I'm not confident enough to want to be involved in a NAIDOC Week celebration, which is coming up next week and falls annually in July. Or I've got an idea of how we can engage with an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander business in the procurement space, but maybe that's not my area. So I guess it's about building that confidence that. And I've always said that reconciliation is it's not a spectator sport; it's a participant sport. It's not going to We're not going to achieve success unless we all get involved and we all see it as our sphere of influence. But ultimately, that's what it's about. It's about building knowledge that can, make our people more confident, and then we can start working towards, what success looks like for your organization. But I think unless we provide them platforms for people to be able to come and conversate, and I refer to it as the courageous conversations, but you just sort of see things get a little bit stale, and they don't sort of progress. And I think that's evident when we see, out of them almost 3,000 reconciliation action plans, a lot of the organizations, they don't progress forward. They stay at the reflect level, or they stay at their first RAP, and then nothing sort of happens. But you see the organizations that are really leaders in this space, and they just keep progressing. They keep building their workforce, and they keep, increasing their spend and their engagement with communities is just, it's growing. So yeah, I think that's kind of a bit of a reflection on how we like to look at it.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's very interesting to see how different organizations take different approaches. And I know that, we've been really fortunate to work with a lot of and build a lot of programs whereby the whole, where we're building a program to build engagement and to build, to build capabilities and things like that of Aboriginal Torres Strait Islanders in different spaces. And we've done that in like horticulture, and we've done it in health and things like this. And we've been really lucky that the focus of all of those programs has just been incredibly positive and being like, really like, this is how we get over this. And, it's so solutions focused.
Yeah.
And I think I see like there are definitely a lot of other organizations whereby it might be more focused on dwelling on the problems as opposed to totally, there are challenges, but there's also so many different solutions that we can look to overcome that. And so one of the things I really liked when Fire and Wattle was first introduced to me is that it does, like all of the videos that I've seen and everything like that, everything is very positive, and it is very like, we're all in this together. We want to make everyone better. We want to create more opportunities for everyone. Like, Australia is a land of opportunity, and, there's so many other things that we can do to build capacity, across all of our communities. So that was one of the things that to me stuck out. Like Shanoa was very positive in all of her videos, and she was very it was just very calming and very easy to listen to. So
Yeah.
you mentioned like Shanoa, you mentioned Uncle Bo. Who are some of the other people that have contributed to the programs?
Yeah, well, we've got Uncle Phil Duncan, who's a patron and one of the leading water experts in Australia. We work with different communities and traditional owner groups. So yeah, I guess depending on which corporate we work with, whether it's in New South Wales and we go through the Lands Council as a bit of a conduit to engaging with communities, that's something we're really focused on. Is we want to work with traditional owner groups. We want to work with local elders, and we work with a range of them. I guess it's really just specific on, the footprint of where we're based or who we're working with. Yeah, but I mean, there's a long list, but at the end of the day, we want to do things a little bit differently, and we want to be proactive in this space. And I think that's something that holds a lot of organizations back, is they want to work with Indigenous communities, but they're not sure on how to take that first step with, okay, who are the local elders in the communities, and how can we bring them in and start having them, them cups of coffee and conversation about what local community wants. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think that leads very well on to our next question, but we're going to take a quick short break first. Guys, for those of you that do want to find out a little bit more about Fire and Wattle, Todd, can you just let them know where they would go to find that out?
Yeah, it's just fireandwattle.com.au is our website.
Absolutely. And guys, I will put that in the show notes below. But do stick around for part 2. That'll be launching next week. Todd, you and I will be back in 5 minutes. Guys, thank you very much. It was Todd from Fire and Wattle. We will put all of the contact details in the links below. Do check out their cultural capability framework, and keep in mind that this is a great way to meet standard 2.5 of the new RTO standards, making sure that you're building the cultural capability of your staff. My name is Lauren for NOI Education Services. Stop recording.